And welcome back to an episode of Geek Centurions. Me, your boy Len.
It's me, Joe.
And we're here to finish up the year with talking about Loki, a show that we have not finished up on. But we're mostly just going to be talking about our thoughts of it in general and where it could lead for the future of Marvel, since the idea of Kang Dynasty is still technically in the air.
Um, yeah. I think this
Weird.
is if you haven't been in the news about Kang and stuff, or rather, his actor Jonathan Majors was. Yeah, if you haven't been in the news about Jonathan Major, the actor that plays Kang and all his variants, a lot of domestic violence stuff going on there.
Yeah, we're not going to talk too much about that.
Yeah, but pretty much it's kind of one of those interesting little wrinkles in terms of how it deals with Loki, right? Um, but yeah, we've finished up, and it definitely took us a bit of time to come back to it. But yeah,
A lot of stuff is going on in our lives, guys. I'm sorry.
yeah, and we also just had to go out with some interesting ideas for episodes as well.
Yeah, so really we're just going to the last few episodes we didn't talk about essentially involved Timely sort of finding his place, kind of not finding his place, but like just kind of like trying to help figure this out, and ultimately ends in such a very violent way. Yeah, because he gets killed in an episode, and you were like, whoa, okay, and I'm just like that's horrifying because he's not like he slowly disintegrates. At the moment you see kind of like his jaw like show off.
It's very reminiscent of the way Mr. Fantastic gets offed in the Multiverse of Madness
Yeah, he
movie.
gets stringed.
And he gets stringed up. It's kind of in a similar vein to that. Um, but yeah, sort of. The last three episodes are basically just Loki trying to figure out a way to stop sort of the end of the
Multiverse.
multiverse from happening.
Mm-hmm.
He learns how to control his little time slipping stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's going around seeing all the essentially who everybody at all our main characters at the TVA who they originally were, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's I find it funny because some of them are just like legit people, and some of them are just like like B12. I forget her name.
Hunter B12, right?
Yeah, yeah. She was a doctor, a doctor for children, and she clearly loved her job. And then there's old boy Ken Huang's character.
Yeah, OB.
OB, where he was like, I'm a failed writer. And I'm just like, that's sad.
Dude, the way they exhibit that, where he just goes into a bookstore and tries to buy a book, and it's like, I don't know why it's not scanning it. It's like, and then it turns out he's the author of that book,
Mm-hmm.
and he planted all those books in that little library, in that little bookstore.
That's so sad.
And he's just trying to make. He's buying his own books just because he wants the people to buy his book, and it's just like, oh,
That's every content creator right now.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's back in the day. That's how
Yeah.
you would get that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just so sad.
Yeah. Too bad he doesn't have social media. It was in the '90s too. There's no social media to help him like boost up his potential.
Well, I mean, I don't know how well. I mean, you have to be good at writing stuff and having interesting stuff to sell books.
Yeah.
I mean, J.K. Rowling definitely took some time, right, when she was writing the Harry Potter series, right?
Yeah. At least he didn't turn out like her.
Yeah, you're not wrong there.
Yeah.
Not wrong.
But then I forget his name. The other guy. He turns out he was
Casey.
Casey was in Alcatraz.
Yeah, I think he was one of the
Escape convicts.
yeah that famous story about the three dudes who escaped Alcatraz, by making plaster heads to themselves.
Wasn't the whole thing that they didn't escape? Like they just might have died on the way there.
Well, they still escaped the prison.
Fair enough.
Man, they still escaped the prison. Whether or not they lived to make it to shore, completely, up to speculation.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of funny because he's such a quiet and nice dude.
Yeah, he's just a very nice, timid guy, just like, oh, hey, how you doing,
And then he's like, I'll stab you.
Well, I mean, he's more like, let's rob some banks, you see,
Oh my god, yeah. And then Mobius is a jet ski salesman.
Yeah, he's
Finally putting a cap to that little story arc.
oh yeah,
But the thing I like about it is that he tries to get everyone together. He there's a moment where you're like, oh, this has to do with like friendship, right? Like, he gets all his friends together.
through the
But
power of friendship,
yeah,
he'll be able to stop the loom from exploding and stuff, right?
but that wasn't the case. He just had to like find a way.
Yeah, because he's essentially just trying to find a way to get back to the
Mhm.
TVA, but ultimately doesn't end up well. Although it is kind of interesting because he
Mhm.
goes to find Sylvie, and this entire time he's trying to explain like, hey, listen, this is gonna sound weird, but he explaining the whole spiel. He just goes to Sylvie like, listen, what I'm gonna say to you is strange. Is like, Loki, what are you doing? It's like, wait, you remember me?
It's
Like,
like, yeah,
yeah, no shit, I remember you.
I'm a fucking god.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell?
Why aren't you helping me? Like, cause I don't want to. I want to spend my life the way I want before I die. And
Yeah.
no, that does not end up well because everything she loves is getting destroyed.
Well, yeah, because she quickly realizes that even though she wants to live her nice little normal life without having the TVA involvement, sadly her timeline, you know,
Mhm.
gets it gets destroyed
Mhm.
in a pretty I would say horrific way.
Yeah, and then like by the next episode, Loki eventually finds out how to control his powers, but it's such a funny thing. He's just like trying every kind of way until he ends up like, no, I have to confront this. He confronts the what's his name?
He who
He
remains.
who remains like, and that's when it just kind of hits. I'm like, oh, I think I might know how to solve it. And then we get like we're speeding through this because like most people have already seen the episode, and most of the ideas that we're kind of talking about like where this means for the future of the Marvel movies, because like we're I mean currently where we're at and all that stuff. But like the idea that Loki kind of like does a self sacrifice.
Yeah, cause I mean he basically he instead of
Mhm.
having Timely go out to fix the loom and stuff, Loki himself goes out to basically uh, sort of serve as the catalyst to the loom, right? Because
Mhm.
he who remains explains that the loom is actually a failsafe, right? Like it's meant to just destroy all the timelines except for the sacred timeline if it
Mhm.
ever if there's too many.
Yeah.
So essentially, the problem that they're trying to solve is just unfixable.
Mhm.
So Loki, the way of fixing that problem is essentially just to become sort of this guardian of time, basically.
Yeah.
Uh, Trying to gather up as many of the timelines as he can and sort of just fueling it with his own magical energy and stuff, right?
Yeah. It's kind of a beautiful one, and you didn't see this around the time, but around the time when this episode came out, a lot of people noted that his final words were reminiscent of his final words in the first Thor movie.
Hmm.
Like this is all for you, and so on and so forth. And it's like, oh, he's quoting himself from back in the day in a way that it makes it seem like coming back to full circle kind of shit.
Right.
And yeah, he essentially saves the timeline. Everyone's um, living a happy life, and then Mobius is like, we need to get him out of there.
Well, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like, all right, listen, let's go find Loki, right?
yeah.
And it is kind of neat to see where everybody is. They even make mention of the events of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumanium,
Mhm.
um, with Mobius passing. Like, we've managed to find maybe one of the, variants, but it seems like there was an incident on, the 616 side of the,
We're still
place.
calling it that.
Yeah, which I mean, that's definitely one of those interesting things, I guess, that's still sort of as I guess some Marvel fans sort of like what, like
Yeah.
not only because I think originally when it comes to the 616 designation, right,
Yeah.
it's usually reserved for the comics.
Mm.
We had Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness stuff, mentioned, oh, we designated your universe as 616 and stuff.
But every other place calls it Earth 19999 something like that.
Yeah, like how in
Spider Verse.
in the Spider Verse movies, uh, Miguel makes note of that. You know, he as a blatant reference. You know, it's like don't get me started on with that nerd on Earth 19999 and stuff. You know, trying to screw up the timeline, screw the
funny.
multiverse. God damn it. You know, so yeah, it is kind of one of those interesting things. I don't know. I think it's in terms of the MCU. I think when it references itself, it references itself as 616, but in terms of the entire actual Marvel multiverse, it's supposed to be Earth 199.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like we're doing it just for those comic fans. It really makes no sense. But sure. Uh, yeah, but thankfully, like the show ends in a way where it feels very finite. It feels like this is the end. But there's a chance that we could always see Loki come back. That's kind of like the whole thing with comics, right? It's never really over.
Well, yeah, and Loki's not dead. He's just he's fulfilling his
great purpose.
Great purpose. Like
again bringing it back to that whole thing, which is like I was saying this show's very good as a finale. But even Tom Hiddleston was like, I don't know if I'm ready to say goodbye to this.
Yeah, and I think there are interesting ways I guess you could have Loki continue on. I mean, obviously, like we're probably gonna get into this more of just like where does this leave the MCU, right?
Yeah, because not only have we been having quality issues, but we have real life issues that could affect the things where they go. And we've talked about it before, right? That like Marvel has always kept it in a way where everything's sort of kind of easily flexible, easily adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
But the way things have been going recently, it's kind of hard for them to do that now. Um, I think also because like they adjusted themselves in a way where like they can do anything, but the people expect too much from them. Not expect too much, but like are like thinking that this is going to connect to a bigger thing. But obviously they can course correct. But now it's kind of hard for them to do that. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get what you mean where you're coming from that. At the same time, I think there's definitely a good chunk of people who are into the MCU who stopped watching after Endgame only because it felt like a nice place to end it, right? There, you hear a lot of the times of like, why are we still doing this stuff? Like didn't like the big story end kind of thing, and it's like, I think I mentioned this before the last time we talked about the problems going on with the MCU is that it's like one of those things like, oh, normal people are now understanding what it's like for comics, like to be into comics and stuff, right?
Just because like, it ends doesn't mean it's over.
Yeah, like the story will go on and all that stuff, right? And I mean, obviously, I think Loki was always gonna be like something people would be interested in because obviously people really liked Loki and Tom Hiddleston and all that. He's been a fan favorite. I mean, he's had multiple like death fake outs, right?
Way too many.
So I mean, at this point, like, it would not surprise me if he came back in some way, shape, or form. I mean, after all, he's supporting and allowing the multiverse to even continue to happen.
Yeah,
right?
And if he doesn't come back, he kind of in a way is living on through holding on to the multiverse.
I mean, yeah, like again, like, he's not dead.
Yeah.
Like we know, like we see at the end of the series, season finale or whatever, that he's very much alive and he's sort of like doing his thing over there. Like, yeah, I got this. This is all gonna work out.
Yeah. But obviously, like, there was a moment where you were talking about this when you were watching the final episode. I was like, what is? Because you were talking about like, okay, that settles that Kang, but now they're introducing the other Kangs. But obviously, we don't know where this is going to lead because the situations that are happening in real life with Jonathan Majors. But for me, part of it is that they plan too far ahead without having concrete idea what on the situation that's going on right now.
Well,
By
I
situation,
mean,
I mean like the quality right now, the movies for right now, not the movies in the future, but the movies right now.
well, it's one of those things that I would say it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
putting too many eggs in one basket kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think Marvel, or Kevin Feige and the dudes behind the MCU and stuff, really were hoping that all the sort of stuff that they were wanting to do would be kind of like received well. And I think some of it has been, others have not been.
Yeah,
But
I feel like the negative ones have been outweighing the good ones. Like a lot of the good ones aren't the best, but they're good. They're okay. Like I think I mean we might hype them up sometimes, but that's because like we're those kind of fans. But also we can understand why everyone doesn't like those. Like we really like Multiverse of Madness, but some people are like, no, that one was pretty bad. I'm like, at best it was okay, right? And like, what was the movie? Shang Chi was also pretty good. Not the best, not the highest of highs, but it's pretty good.
yeah, I
Black
mean,
Panther 2 was also one of those.
yeah, I would say like, it's kind of interesting how people uh, uh, blast Love and Thunder, which I mean I get from a certain angle. Like I
Mhm.
kind of do see that, like especially with I guess the potential of the Gore the Butcher storyline and all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
But it's kind of like funny that people sort of like now retrospect or like come out as like, oh, I never liked
Taika.
Taika's take on Thor anyway.
It's like bullshit.
Ragnarok friggin' was terrible actually.
No, it's
Even
not.
though most people when it came out were like, yeah, no, I like this direction for Thor. It's more
Mhm.
fun and more interesting.
Mhm.
That sort of thing. Like,
There's people who like why help they make it more like true to the like or like more like more that Viking ass. I'm like Thor was never that Viking in the comics.
yeah, that's one of the like
Mhm.
things that I think people don't really get about mythological characters in most comic book stories.
Oh yeah.
They don't really try to be like accurate to the original myths and stuff. I mean, heck, friggin' Wonder Woman, like that, like she's definitely not like they're kind of closer, I guess, in the movies a little bit, but
Yeah.
even then, it's like no,
Yeah.
that is not how any of that happened in the myths,
Mhm. And also depending on who's writing the myths too, because like I remember there was one Wonder Woman comic where um Diana was like ready to kill Hephaestus because it was around the time where like it was really gross. It was really gross. Um, it was like the Amazons forgotten sons. Like they were gonna go like, throw him out and whatever, and because Hephaestus was like, no, 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 I'll take care of him. And she's like, you're free, brothers. And like, he saved our lives,
Mm.
and it's just like, it's okay. But like, yeah, no, it's not very much like one to one. Like at best, Thor was always more of a spacefaring character because like he would always like travel around like different worlds, different things, that kind of stuff. Never was he really like that like honed in Norse mythology. And again, kind of depends on the writer, right?
Mhm.
Like I mean, Donny Cates, one of the writers I praise 100 times over, if you know me, like was writing a Thor book where uh, at one point it ends with like it ends in a very like Norse mythology way with someone getting like the poison of the snake dropping in their eyes. If you know the myth, you know the myth. But let's just say it's not the person this time, it's someone else. But yeah, no, it's they've always been very much like this idea that if it's not this way, then it's bad. Um, but yeah, no, the negatives have very much overweighed the positives in some of these stuff, and it's totally understandable too because like you expect better quality, and especially like right now where they're just pumping it out.
Yeah, and I think that's something I think the MCU has, or at least especially Kevin Feige have acknowledged that. Yeah, they probably went a little too hard on all these Disney Plus shows.
Mhm.
and just trying to spew out just a bunch of content.
Mhm.
Um,
Now, whether it's them or Disney, that's a totally different conversation entirely.
I mean, you would imagine it's kind of both because like both have the incentive, especially
Mhm.
with the launch of Disney Plus, right? Of like, hey, we want to make more content for our streaming service. Let's get some MCU stuff on here, and like not to say that every single like Disney Plus like like MCU show is bad or anything because it's
No,
not.
no, no, no. Loki, WandaVision, um, to an extent, What If. I have my gripes with it, but I really enjoyed it. Um, I enjoyed She-Hulk, despite what some people would say. Like, there's some shows in there that are pretty good. But I've also said, you've heard me say before, Secret Invasion was not good. It was not good, not at all. But you know, that's fine. You can have like failures, you can have successes, um, but the quality needs to be there too. And sadly, we did not get that with some of these. Um, now, because of that, all this stuff, it's wondering is like, okay, um, what about the movies now? Because like you're setting up for all this stuff, and nothing is connecting, nothing is making sense. Like, what now?
Yeah, because really it's more like I when you think about how the first, the Infinity Saga, right? How
Mm,
that all played out, right? Um, you have like I wouldn't say like there wasn't necessarily a big plan, but obviously after the Avengers, you clearly sort of set up Thanos as like, oh, he's a big bad, that'd be
will we use
interesting.
them in the second movie? Who knows?
Yeah, but basically, it's like, oh, we're teasing the Infinity Gauntlet storyline,
Mm,
potentially being a factor. That's kind of cool and interesting, right?
yeah.
Um, and honestly, I think I truly do think one of the things about like this phase of Marvel is that, like this whole sort of like multiverse saga is that
Mm,
there hasn't been like a big like unifying moment to like establish like, okay, this is where what's going on, right?
mhm.
I mean, I guess you could argue something like No Way Home, right? Could it like was like that where it's like, oh, this is like,
Doctor Strange, yeah.
like this is the multiverse stuff. This is where we're sort of going with it, right? And it's like, I don't know, because it's like it feels like we're focusing on these various things, but at the same time, there's like stuff that you feel like should be interesting and focused on, because it's like, all right, so obviously when we get a new Avengers movie, you know, we have Falcon as the new Captain America. We'll have such and such. It's like it feels a little like, why aren't we getting more films about like all these new characters interacting with one another, basically, right?
Mhm.
Like why haven't we gotten like an actual decent like team up like we did with the Avengers movies, right? Because that's always what it felt like to me whenever we did get an Avengers movie. It's like, this is sort of like the climax of this arc of the saga, right?
Yeah.
Like this.
Which is the point of like every Avengers movie.
Yeah, it's like the first Avengers get the team together. The second
Mhm.
Avengers, like the main thing about that is like, oh, show that there's divisions in the team to help set up some stuff like Civil War and all, like lay that groundwork. You know,
Mhm.
obviously Endgame, Infinity War and Endgame. Those are the big crescendos, right? Like that's your big sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Like Infinity War, with the way it ends, is like, oh, it's like the everything is falling apart kind of thing. What do we do? And then of course, Endgame, the big resolution of that sort of story arc.
Mhm.
But we really haven't had that here in this phase of Marvel, and I think it sort of shows there isn't a whole lot, I guess, for regular audiences to get interested in, because it's like, okay, we know this is building up to multiverse stuff, right?
Yeah.
But like we haven't really gotten a whole lot of it. Like, how does Shang-Chi's storyline involve the multiverse?
Mhm.
How do the Eternals get involved in the multiverse?
Are they even coming back?
Yeah, like that's sort of thing. Like we kind of get, it's sort of like an aftermath thing going on right now. I mean, heck, like again, like we're in phase 5 right now, but it doesn't even feel like we're in a new phase of Marvel.
It feels like we're still in the same space.
Yeah, like there wasn't like I guess you could argue with the start of Quantumanium being like the first phase 5 movie, like okay, so now we're getting like
set up for Kang, which will lead into Kang Dynasty, but that's leading nowhere. Plus, like how a lot of people feel about Kang in that movie is like, is he really capable? Well, he is. It's they're not just fighting that one Kang; they're fighting against all the variants. That's essentially what's implying. But like, but also like, if you feel like you're not if the villain you set up isn't, you know, you're not if the people don't feel like they're not confident with the villain, should you even go with it?
Well, I mean, the reason why you would say people aren't confident in it is because obviously the real world implications involved with Jonathan Majors right now, where I guess depending on how the whole trial goes, which I do think is still ongoing.
Yeah.
We won't really comment much about it, other than that's the thing that's happening. Obviously if it does happen, like if he gets found guilty and stuff, then yeah, Marvel probably would not. It would not be a good look on Marvel or Disney to continue
with Kang. And even now, like not just with the Kang situation, just like people's reception to the films, because like, well, we haven't talked about the Marvels. It's the lowest grossing film, and people are like saying, okay, that's the final nail. That's the end of comic movies, and I'm just like, not really. Like, we didn't stop with comic movies. We didn't stop with musicals. They'll still be there. It's just people are kind of like tired.
I would say it's less of people are tired of superhero movies and more like people want more good ones, right? Because obviously we say the Marvel's lowest grossing Marvel movie of all time. Could you blame it on just various reshoots? Maybe could you blame it on the fact that it has two of your major characters are from Disney Plus shows, and you're hoping and expecting fans to have watched those things, right?
Yeah, no matter what, that movie had a upward battle.
Yeah. But at the same time, we also got Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in the same year, and which is very lauded as like one of the most best comic movies to come out in a while.
A lot of emotional things were going on in that movie. I heard a lot of people crying in that movie.
Yeah, so pretty much, like it's
we also had the Batman, which is this year. Was it last year?
No, it was last year.
Okay, never mind.
But point being, right, like
there are outliers to the.
Like, I mean, you could also argue if you really wanted to, the Flash is what is gonna kill comic book movies, and it did not do well.
No.
Yeah, Warner Brothers drank pretty hard on that one, and it's like this is your sloppy way of resetting your DC universe to set up James Gunn's take on the DC universe. That's cool, I guess.
Even if that is what it's going on, I don't even know. And we haven't even talked about Aquaman: The Lost Kingdom.
Which, yeah, is supposed to come out this year. I'm pretty sure this month, right?
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, that's gonna be interesting, right?
That's gonna be real interesting. But like, honestly, the future for Marvel is really just kind of up in the air. I think right now it's best for them just to. We didn't even talk about Blade.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we did talk about, again, this is stuff we've talked about before in like our previous episode when it came to it, but it was more specifically on that sort of thing. But in terms of the impact with Loki, it's very clear that I think Marvel will still try to do its multiverse stuff. Whether or not they pivot off of Kang, or I mean,
rumor has it Doctor Doom's coming in.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, you also have. I don't know. I think it's still entirely possible you can also just recast Jonathan Majors, but I mean, I don't know whether or not that's trickier than just pivoting to Doctor Doom. But it's one of those like things of just. It feels like a lot of the characters that Marvel wants to promote hasn't been sticking the landing, and it really feels like we're just sort of waiting on the bigger stars that we haven't seen stuff from, like Blade, like the Fantastic Four, like
X-Men.
X-Men, which I mean, Deadpool 3 comes out next year, and people are already sort of clamoring for it. Like that's sort of the thing. Like earlier, like I don't think this is the end of comic books movies in general because I mean, Deadpool 3 comes out next year, and
people are hyped for that one.
And people are super hyped about that one.
They're like they're hyped for the new Superman movie, which I'm hyped for because I want a good Superman movie.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to look forward to in that in that perspective.
Right? I do think it's just like people are just kind of tired of like Marvel movies just because of the nature of like that fandom and that sort of perception of like what it means to have that kind of situation. Like I mean like look at all the directors that are being asked about Marvel movies and they're like I don't give a fuck about them. It's like why are you even asking people that? You already know the answer. Martin Scorsese isn't gonna watch a superhero movie. Why would he? That's not who he is.
I mean, it's really. I mean, I know why they ask, and that is just to get clicks and stuff.
No shit. That's kind of the point I'm saying, right? It's stuff like that that makes people like really like negative towards some of the stuff. Like that's fine if like someone doesn't want to watch that. No one's forcing you. It's just people kind of won't shut up about it, right?
Yeah.
But like yeah, no, I think Marvel itself sort of does need to like tone back a lot of its stuff. Sort of go with the route of the comics where every once in a while we get the big event that brings everyone together. Everyone has their own little storylines, little cherry moments of like that lead up to the big thing. Kind of like what they did in the beginning.
Right. I mean, again, that's not. I don't think you're wrong with that.
No.
It's clearly, wanting to do probably something different is probably what they wanted to do because
they want to change.
Yeah, like it's nice to experiment and stuff, right? Yeah. But I mean, I don't think it's wrong to do that, because after a while, like
at the same time, is like, are they allowed to do it? Okay, can they do it? Like, will there be enough reception for it? Like, Echo's the new show that's coming out, and that one's gonna be different.
I mean, yeah. Again, I think I think that one we mentioned briefly in the previous episode, but it's clear like again, it's like it is different in the way it's presented in the trailer and stuff, and I think that's what gets people about it because it's like there's clearly people who want different things out of the MCU, and like it's like yes, do that, like don't give us this other stuff. We want stuff like that,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's sort of
that's like a good place to end it, because we're gonna be talking about like circles about stuff. But yeah, no, we do want this thing to succeed. We do want to see more quality stuff, and really that's what it is. We just want quality. Enough of the quantity, we don't want quality. Simple as that. But if you like what you heard, be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Geek Centurions. We're most active on Instagram. There you can find links to all podcasts, which is part of like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, all of the like. And we have a YouTube for all you audio listeners out there who want to put a face to the voice. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, we have a Patreon there that's also for support. And yeah, that's about it. It's been me, your boy Eli.
It's me, Joe.
And this is the last episode of the year. Hope to see you guys next year. Peace.